and welcome to the European Parliament. No, we're not trying to hypnotise you with all that music. We're just kicking off our second Connect.Euranet debate of the week right here from the European Parliament live. Today we're going to talk about the very importance of investing in research and development in the EU and promoting European brains. As you can see, we're broadcasting live from the European Parliament here in Brussels. For the next 45 minutes, you can watch us live on Facebook on our website, Connect.Euranet.eu as well. We're looking forward to lots of comments and questions from you. You can also tweet or leave some comments on Twitter with the hashtag ConnectEUBrains. Now, with European governments cutting back and seriously cutting down on investment in research and science, job opportunities in areas like the chemical industry are scarce, especially in Southern Europe. With this worrying brain drain in mind, today's debate will look at ways to invest in European brains, pump money and energy into EU initiatives in research and innovation, and above all, keep those brains here in Europe. As usual, we'll be joined by students from all over Europe that belong to our university campus radio circle, Connect.Euranet. But first of all, let me introduce my panellists. First of all, to my right from the European Commission, allow me to introduce Jordi Curell-Cotor. He's the Director for Higher Education and International Affairs in the European Commission's DG for Education and Culture. In charge of lifelong learning, Mr. Curell is responsible for making Europe more attractive for students, scholars and researchers and promoting a knowledge-based economy in Europe. Not an easy job for yourself.
Not easy, but luckily enough, we are not alone on that. We propose programs, but then they are implemented by many people, and then they benefit the brains of Europe. So,
well, we're looking forward to finding out more about that in the next 45 minutes. To help us out with that, we have as well from Eurochambre, the Association of European Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Bettina Gola from Berlin. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Since Bettina's arrival in Brussels, she's been specialising in the area of education, training and innovation, and is following the work of the European Commission very carefully. Bettina, the Commission always says that research means business, so you'll be putting light on that issue throughout the debate. And to tell us about her experience working in the field as a scientist and as a researcher, I'd like to welcome our Spanish PhD research student, Maria Muriel Gracia. Maria took part in some of the fellowships and currently lives and carries out some research in the University of Leuven, just up the road. And before that, you studied maths in Madrid and did a master's in aerospace science and aerospace engineering.
Thank you for welcoming me.
You're very welcome. We're looking forward to hearing about your experience. And of course, last but not least, we have our students from the campus radio that will be rotating in the next 45 minutes. First, we have Magda here from Radio Campus Warsaw 97.1 FM.
Hello.
Magda's been working for the student radio since 2005 after graduating, and she's delighted to be back here again for a topic that's not so familiar, let's say, as yesterday's topic, that of Erasmus+.
Yeah, it is difficult topic for today, I think.
It is indeed. Because one name that we will be mentioning a few times over the next 45 minutes is, of course, Marie Curie, the French-Polish physicist who's known for her research on radioactivity and renowned, of course, for being the first woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Today, her name is often mentioned here in the EU institutions because, of course, the EU has a European research grant programme called the Marie Curie Fellowship. It gives funding to scientists to travel abroad and work as well in the private sector. While preparing for today's show, students from the campus radio in Warsaw interviewed their fellow students about the Marie Curie, but as we're about to find out, they actually didn't have a clue what it was. Let's have a listen.
I know about some EU initiatives, but I can't describe them. I knew about Marie Curie and some centers of knowledge, but I don't know if I can use them, if I can go them, if I can reach their libraries or knowledge.
Unfortunately, I don't know any program about development in Europe, and I don't know anyone who takes part in it.
Well, to be honest, I never heard about such programs. I heard about the program that help in business and making your own small business that from donations from European Union, but for scientific grants from European Union I've never heard of before.
I heard about some programs in Europe and what gave me some experience, but I don't know how to get some grants. I don't know where I can give some informations, and I don't know if my some friends use this kind of project.
So very blank faces there in Warsaw. So who in the panel can actually clear up and tell us a bit more about what exactly is this Marie Curie programme?
I can give it a try if you want. The first thing I would like to say is that we've changed the name of Marie Curie. And now it's called Marie Skłodowska-Curie, because as you were saying,
That's her full
she's
name,
French,
she's French-Polish.
and Polish. So to pay tribute to her Polish origin, we're changing that. If I can put it in a very simple manner, I hope Marie Curie is the Erasmus for researchers. To put it. Of course, the main difference between the two programs is the level of the grants. Erasmus is very popular because of its mass effect. And we have celebrated 3 million students this year of Erasmus, while Marie Curie, precisely because of the high level of the grants, we are celebrating the 50,000 Marie Curie Fellows. So you see the difference in approach.
And it's a 4-year program, is it? You get funding for 4 years?
You get funding for 4 years, depending on the action. There's a number of different actions. Some of them individuals can apply directly. It's what we call the individual fellowships, where bright individuals in Europe can apply directly for that. And some of them, some others are first a consortia with a research project has to be constituted, and then this consortia publishes, advertises employment positions, and I guess that's what you got, Maria.
That's my case.
Tell us a bit about your experience then with this, how you went about it and what kind of it's brought to you.
So to begin with, I had never heard about these Marie Curie actions before getting one. So what I applied for
But
was...
how did you find out about it?
Well, I didn't find out the Marie Curie action until I was already employed
I
at
see.
KU Leuven. So I went for the research that I wanted to do, and then I got the Marie Curie action, the Marie Curie grant. And me, myself, I didn't know until, let's say, a couple of months ago, that there were different ways of applying for a Marie Curie grant. And yeah, so I guess this is what is happening around Europe, that students themselves, even at high level, even students who have been doing research themselves, they don't know about these programs because the knowledge is not spread. That's one of the, I think it's one of the most important things to take into account, to try to spread the knowledge and to say to these students who really want to go abroad, to have an experience, to have a research abroad, that they can apply actually for these programs.
Because earlier this morning I had a small pamphlet in my hand with lots of nice information, explained clearly what exactly it is and how to apply. But I guess the problem is these pamphlets are not being given out all over Europe. They're just basically in here in Brussels.
Well, hopefully they are beyond that, because in order to bring it closer to potential beneficiaries, and there is a gap, obviously, but we are aware of that and we're trying to correct that, is that we are not doing that on our own. And we have in each member state, we have what we call a national contact point, who's someone who's closer to researchers, to universities, etc., who is doing that already. Of course, we cannot reach everyone, but of course, having said that, and while fully agreeing with you, we should maybe bear in mind that the success rate for the Marie Curie Fellowships is 8%. So it means that already now, with the lack of knowledge that you are pointing at, which is true, we already have every 100 applications, only 8 get funds. So we are already in a very competitive and excellence-based program.
Bettina Gola, what's the business's perspective on the program?
Well, we're definitely very happy that this program exists. There's also the host-driven part of the program where a company, for example, the industry academia partnerships, and so a company can, together with a research organization, do an exchange. They basically exchange staff, and then the staff gets, the salaries get funded. So we definitely see that as a very positive initiative. Only that also this is a very competitive program, so only little programs, not many programs get funded. So we would definitely want to see much more of those partnerships to be funded in the future. But this is definitely a very positive experience, I think, for the SMEs, especially because I think 50% of the companies that host Marie Curie Fellows, they are SMEs. So
okay, Magda.
Yeah, I would like to ask, because talking with students and Polish scientists, we often hear that they don't know how to get EU funding for their research, and we sometimes hear that they don't know how to obtain this kind of support, that it is difficult also for a formal reason. So I would like to ask if there is a possibility to simplify the formal procedures, and if this can be more easy to get.
You have asked the question that every European official is dreading, is about simplification, and you are completely right. We have to be simpler. We try every time. We don't manage to be as simple as we should, possibly, but every time, as you know, every 7 years, we have the occasion of looking at our programs and making proposals for improving them. And one of the main drivers of this improvement, apart some specificities for each program, but the overall driver is simplicity. We don't manage to be as simple as we should. Having said that, there is a real effort, and we do engage with students, with current or former fellows, with people managing that in member states in order to try to do it. We have to bear in mind, though, that in order to have a proper assessment of the proposal, we need information, and this information has to be provided in a standardized manner, otherwise the evaluation process would be unfair. So we do have to bear with that. And then we don't have to forget either that we are dealing with public monies, and therefore we are subject to very strict controls, which we welcome as a matter of fact, because we have to make sure that we spend the money as we should. And in order to comply with these reporting requirements to the auditors, unhappily, there's a level of that. But if I have to summarize what I would reply is, first of all, that is a direct question by us. Secondly, that you are right. And thirdly, to ensure you that from the top, from President Barroso up to the youngest official, our aim in that is to make it simpler.
I'm glad that our students are asking you dreaded questions. That's why we invite you. What about your personal experience, the pros and the cons?
Well, I can't see many cons. For me, up to now, I've been ESR, early stage researcher, for just 1 year, and they are all pros. So basically, as he already pointed out, we have the very good partnership in between the academia and the industry, which is, well, for me in the aerospace sector, is an amazing opportunity to deal with these big companies. Mm-hmm. For sure, we also have fellow-to-fellow interface. We have to organize workshops, meetings every now and then, quite often, I have to say. So you have the opportunity to talk with people who are doing the same thing as you in a relaxed environment, not during conferences that you have other things to talk about and it's not that relaxed anymore. You have the opportunity to deal with experienced people also in this relaxed context, and you have the opportunity to grow up yourself in an European country that is not yours. So for me, everything, all of them are
two enthusiastic thumbs up. Great. Magda, you had a question for Bettina Gola from Airchamps.
Yeah, I would like to ask you if you think that EU support for the transfer of learning and knowledge to business is sufficient.
Well, I think, can it be sufficient? I think we can always do more. It's definitely very good that this program exists and that it encourages transfer of knowledge. There are also many other EU initiatives in this field. So there are the knowledge alliances and then also the knowledge and innovation communities. So those are other projects that also contribute to the exchange of knowledge. But we can always do more. I think the goal is definitely to get different circles working better together, universities, research institutes and businesses, and everybody has to join forces.
That's what we heard a lot about yesterday in our debate on on Erasmus Plus, all about joining forces. Magda, at this stage of the debate, we're going to have to say goodbye to you and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And invite up our next student, Rocio, just after this short break. Hi there and welcome back. If you're watching the live stream, you've seen that we've changed the faces of one of our students. I'd like to welcome up now Rocío González Balcázar from the Campus Radio Universidad de Vigo. She's a 21-year-old student studying advertising and public relations in Galicia in Pontevedra, and she's in Brussels for the very first time with us here on the Connect.Euranet debate, but believes that her future one day could be here or anywhere outside Europe, but just not in Spain. Is that the case?
Yes, it is.
And are you enjoying your experience here in the Parliament so far?
Very much, yes.
Learning a lot. Good stuff. Well, on that note, you can kick off with your first question.
My first question is about the investment. How are the countries going to get the money to invest on research and innovation?
Well, these programs are European programs, and we fund the projects on the basis of the excellence of the proposals. There's no country repartition, so we'll not be contributing quotas for different member states. The territorial-based funding, so to speak, is done through the cohesion funds, who have a different finality. But when it comes to research and innovation and to education, they are done on the basis of the quality of the proposal.
Yeah, I was reading a testimonial this morning from a young Spanish chemistry graduate, and he said in Spain investment in science is almost zero. He said there'll be a hole in our development in industry and university research. There's a brain drain happening here that will increase immigration to Northern European countries that are investing in science. That's quite a gloomy read. No comment. Okay, Magda, next question.
My next question is there any concern about countries like Spain,
Precisely.
Portugal, Italy to be able to invest on this program?
Bettina.
Yeah, maybe I would like to jump in there.
Be
I think companies want to innovate because they want to find solutions to business problems and to do them in a better, new way. And so what we have to change, especially in those countries that are currently still undergoing an economic crisis, is we have to improve the framework conditions. So better access to finance, clear IPR, so intellectual property rights law, so that, and then also more flexible and not very bureaucratic EU rules, so that I can apply for funding, I can get it when I need it, and I can start my project as soon as possible without having to prove everything you can possibly think of. So, and then we of course also need stable partnerships, but I think we have to work on the whole framework and especially access to finance.
But how can we get rid of all this bureaucracy? It's kind of impossible.
It's a long process, and I think currently Mr. Gutar can probably talk about this, but we're negotiating it.
Well, when it comes to the management of the program, I think that we have made progress. I mean, if we refer to the other program, which is under my responsibility as well, which is Erasmus Plus, that you were discussing with my commissioner yesterday, I think that we can clearly see that the way that Erasmus grants are managed now is easier than what before. It has been devolved to universities, so it's them managing the money. It's not Brussels anymore, and I think that that's a fundamental change. Of course, when it comes to programs like Marie Curie, where the amounts are bigger and where competition for funding is more important, it still has to be done here. And as I said before, I mean, we're trying to make it easier, but we have constraints that we cannot depart from. But let me assure you that it's not just a matter of rules, it's a matter of attitude of colleagues managing the programs. And they are all very much hyped into being as simple as possible and as helpful as possible with people submitting proposals.
And for the next period of 2014 to 2020, how much money are we looking at here in the budget in the MMF?
We are looking at 7 billion for Marie Curie, which is a significant increase.
So individually, for example, if I went on a Marie Curie Fellowship to live on, for example, I could live on that. Would it be enough to live on, or you'd have to have a side job? Let's ask our student, our PhD research student.
Yes, I mean, the amount of money that we get as Marie Curie Fellows is quite high. So it's, more than enough to live in an European country, wherever it is.
Does it depend? Is it different for each country you go to?
Yes, there's a small coefficient that changes from country to country. I cannot talk very much about it because my coefficient was 1. So it's like the basic, and then some countries get a little bit less, some countries I think they get a little bit more. But I think the money that you get is more than enough to live wherever you go.
That sounds encouraging. Your next question with you?
Yes, my next question is for you. As somebody who has been on the program, what do you think are the strongest and the weakest points of the program?
Well, for me, the strongest points are the partnership in between. I mean, the good of it is that you can deal with a lot of different institutions, and not only the ones taking part in your project, but you also get to know other people from other institutions and to meet people, network with them, because if you are doing research, one of the most important things is knowing people, because you cannot know everything in the world, so at some point you will need help from someone else with something that you are coming through, and that there's a bunch of people who probably know a lot about it, and you can just ask them, things like that. So these network programs are perfect for that.
Sounds like every sector.
Sorry.
Your next question?
And the weakest point of the program?
The weakest point, up to now I don't think I have seen a weak point. I think one of the weakest point is the lack of knowledge among researchers themselves. I mean, if you are already doing a research, you probably have heard about these programs, but then to apply for an early stage researcher grant, then you are already too late because you are already you have already been a researcher for more than X years. That is a requisite for applying for this kind of for early stage researcher grants. You have also experienced researchers grants, but then that's a step forward. So the weakest point I think is the lack of information, probably from universities or research centers.
And that, I guess, is up to the Commission or the DG Communication.
Yeah, again, there's always an issue with that. I would like to repeat, though, that it's a very competitive program and that the rate of success is 8%. So, I mean, if we have to do more communication, of course, but the more applicants we get, since we don't increase our money, it means that there will be less success. So there is a balance to be struck here. What I would like to add, if you allow me, is that, of course, we always get the dreaded question about simplification, which is more welcome when we try to address. But the real pleasure is to then to meet Marie Curie Fellows, because you see the enthusiasm which they refer to the program. So it means that something is good about this program.
Absolutely. Okay, do you have another question?
Yes, can you explain more the requirements for getting into the program?
Well, as far as I remember, one of the first requirements is not having been researching for more than 4 years for an early stage researcher grant. You cannot have been living in the actual country where you are applying for more than 12 months within the last, I think it's 4 years. Mm-hmm. Those are the, I think, 2 biggest constraints. Obviously, then you need to be good in what you are doing because, as he said already, it's very competitive. So there's a lot of people applying for the same position. So you need to be good in what you are doing. But that's, I think, the most important. But I don't remember really all the requisites. I mean, I applied for it. And
since you've been on receiving this funding, have you spread the word on to any of your friends or colleagues in Spain that are stuck for some cash and would like to do some research?
Sure, not only in Spain. I spread the knowledge about this, not only to researchers, but also we have in Leuven, in fact, we have events to spread the knowledge of this, not only about Marie Curie, but about researching itself. So we have a lot of events going on to inform people, which is something I haven't heard of in Spain, neither in Madrid nor in Barcelona. So.
And do you think there's really a brain drain going on now? Can you see all your Spanish friends and stuff leaving the country to search for work and studies elsewhere?
Sure, yes. So there's a lot of people going all around Europe, which is not a bad thing, in fact, because it really makes you grow up as a person, and it's something that nowadays, if you want to keep researching, is kind of like a requisite anywhere you go, to be multicultural, to have been spending time in some other institutions, not just be stuck in one place and know what they do, but that's it. So it's, in fact, a good thing on one side, but then on the other side, it should be better if we do it because we want and not because we are forced to do it.
Absolutely. Okay, at this stage I'm going to say goodbye and thank you very much to Theo and invite our next student up. After this break, we'll see you again. Hi there and welcome back. And if you're watching us live, don't be shy and please send in some questions. Some tweets as well would be good so we can get this debate going a bit more. I'd like to welcome Anna Saresta. She's from the University of Tampere in Finland. She's a 23-year-old student of journalism and mass communication. You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's a new topic for you. You're currently writing your thesis on peace studies. Is that the case?
Yes, that's true. I'm majoring in journalism and mass communication, so it goes more in that field.
So you're tackling a new topic today?
Well, for sure.
The daily task of a journalist. Okay, you can kick off with your first question.
Okay, I would like to ask Bettina Gola first. What, in your opinion, is the kind of research that in today's Europe would be needed, mostly?
The kind of research that we need now to create growth in Europe is definitely one that is applied and that can be used afterwards by companies to create growth. So I think that's a very easy, logical kind of thing.
So in which areas is that in your
Which means like in health or environment or in business?
I think the big areas for the moment are, for example, health, ICT, then environmental and engineering. So I think that's also where most of the Marie Curie grants are currently that they're touching on.
Bettina, yesterday the Commissioner was stressing the point how you need to have a master's in today's world. It's really important to have a master's. But what about the business aspect? Is it like we're creating a problem now? We've got so many students with lots of masters and postgrads and undergraduates, but they have no work experience. I mean, what's the importance of having a business experience during your studies?
During your studies, well, to find a job or to create your own job afterwards. I mean, especially in countries where the situation now is difficult when you already learn at school or at university how to create your own enterprise, how to tackle the problem that you want to tackle. That enables you to create your own job afterwards. And then I think it also enables you to be more creative in research and to find new contacts, to work with different kind of partners.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anna?
Yeah, maybe I would like to know on the European level if you're actually afraid at the moment that, for example, the so-called BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, will override European research.
I don't think that we are there yet. I think that European research is working well. As a matter of fact, Marie Curie is a very international program, and we do not only fund people from the European Union, but also beyond, from Brazil. They are pretty active from the States, etc. And we are not afraid of that. As Maria was saying, mobility, and I think that we were referring more to brain circulation and not to brain drain, of course, but mobility for researchers is fundamental. And that's why we one of the constraints she was talking about before is about being mobile, because we believe that what we call the triple I principle is fundamental. So international mobility, that is geographical mobility on the one hand, intersectoral mobility, that is mobility between academia, research and business, which is fundamental as well, and then interdisciplinary mobility between engineers and philosophers, so to speak, and that's fundamental. And that's the addition of these three I's is what sparks the innovation.
But it's about competitiveness, right? The Marie Curie Fellowship.
No, there's competition to get the grants. But I beg to differ with Bettina. I wouldn't make a difference between applied research and blue sky research, because both are needed. Of course, applied research, when it comes to a point, I'm not a researcher, so correct me please if I'm wrong. But at some point, I guess that you have to be very applied driven. But some of the things that we are discovering, that we are using now, like Google, like something, they come from blue sky research. So there should be no opposition between them. They should be funded equally, so that sometimes you just discover things not by chance, but without looking for them. So it's very important to balance the investment on both blue sky and applied research.
Before you go on, I just have a question here on Facebook for you, Maria. The question comes from definitely a Spaniard, Laura Aguiles Martinez, and she wants to know, as a woman who's enjoyed the Marie Curie Fellowship, have you felt any discrimination among the male scientists? Not in the process of your selection to get the grant.
No, and I have to say, from my personal experience, I haven't found any discrimination at all. And in fact, if there's discrimination, it's a positive discrimination, because in the engineering world, well, we are talking now about aerospace, so you can imagine there are not many women there. So yeah, the men are happy to have us around. So yes.
Delighted.
And now.
And your next question was actually about that, wasn't it?
Yes, well, I was wondering, as you mentioned at the beginning, that Marie Skłodowska-Curie, she was the first woman who was awarded a Nobel Prize. And also inside this fellowship, there is a stress towards women scientists. This might sound a stupid question, but why do you think it is important to promote the work of women scientists?
Well, I think it is important because we shouldn't do also, I have to be clear here, I'm very happy to be a woman, but it's not also good to have positive discrimination and to say, okay, we are going to hire 50% women, 50% men, out of which from the 100%, 90% are men applying. So then you cannot expect to have the same number of women hired than men. Okay, so I'm not in favor of positive discrimination either, but just equality. Okay, so we should be equal, and if you demonstrate that you are good doing whatever you are doing, you can be as good as a man or as bad as a man. So, yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
If I may, on that one, I fully agree with you. Of course, I think that Marie Curie has a good record in gender balance. So we are at around 40% of participation. And what you say about positive discrimination, I find it very true and very interesting. However, I think that we can put some boundary conditions in order to make it easier for women to apply. And we know that women, at some point, they become, if they want to do so, of course, they become mothers, so they might have to interrupt their research career, and they have family responsibilities and so on and so forth. And we do try to cater for that, and we have what we call the career integration panel, which is to allow women who have been active in their research and which then have to have a break for parental reasons, to have easier access to the program, not as a patronizing measure, but because that would be, as you say, completely wrong, but as a matter of compensating for the different situation and position that women have in society. But in that respect, I think that Marie Curie could be a bit of an example as well, because gender participation is pretty high.
And it's a big topic of interest. The Commission has a website, Science It's a Girls Thing, with over 60,000 followers and lots of updates and stuff. So it's an area that you're working a lot in.
Yeah, because I guess that we have, but you know better than I do, but we have a stereotype in our minds. And when we think about a researcher, we think about a man my age, possibly, with a white mustache and with a white, while a researcher, I'm not a researcher, she's a researcher, and she doesn't respond to the stereotype that we have. So I think that we have to combat that kind of stereotype in order to make it possible, without preferent access, of course, but possible for bright persons, women in this case, to the program.
And did you know always what you wanted to do when you were small?
No.
You only figured it out as you went along?
Yeah, I think my life was a flow, and I follow it. So I studied mathematics, then I went on an Erasmus to England, to Southampton, in fact. And then there I decided that, I always loved airplanes, but then I decided that I wanted to study aerodynamics, and that drove me, and kind of like that, I end up here.
And where do you see yourself in about 20 years?
Well, hopefully in the academia, teaching young students and trying to make them think by themselves and not follow the flow as I did.
I'm curious to see what kind of Europe we have in 20 years' time. We have a question for Jordi from Timmy Sen. Is the future of this fellowship the same as the Erasmus Fellowship? I mean, give less and less money every year. That's the question.
Well, it's not true that we give less and less money for Erasmus. We give the same amount of money, which is updated to inflation. There is a major difference between the philosophy of the Marie Curie grants and the Erasmus grants. Erasmus is a sort of contribution to the mobility costs, while Marie Curie, it provides for living conditions. As Maria was telling us, with the kind of grant that you get, and I hope that you have an employment contract, because that's what we request to our beneficiaries, that they give you a real employment contract with Social Security and so on and so forth. It makes you a living. That's not the point of Erasmus. The point of Erasmus is to give an extra help for the mobility. So it's not getting less and less money. And as I said before, I think we have proposed, and the Council and Parliament have endorsed, a significant increase in the funding for Erasmus Plus, 40% plus, and for Horizon 2020. Just one last word on that. I think that it's interesting that Maria refers to her previous Erasmus experience, because I think that it has played a role in your getting this current position, precisely because international mobility is good for students.
Bettina, just a question for you, as you're here representing the interests of lots of sectors of every size of European business. How important are the EU's programmes on research, development, innovation and technology for your chamber?
Well, they are important, but they could be more important if they would be easier to access, I think.
So back to this main issue. I think that's going to be the conclusion of today's discussion.
So I think now in the current framework program, we have an SME participation of about 15%. That should definitely be higher. So that illustrates that the projects are too big, the time to grant is too slow, the maybe the topics, they're not adapted to the needs of companies. They're not on what they're currently researching on or what they want to innovate on. So I think they would definitely, we would need some simplification to make EU programs more attractive for companies.
And what are the pillars of the main programs now for the next 7 years, from 2014 to 2020, in the Horizon 2020? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, the Horizon 2020, it's a departure from the current FP7 in the sense that it has a more coherent approach. And to put it in very few words, we have three main pillars. One pillar, which is the excellence pillar, where we have Marie Curie and the European Research Council, for instance, where it's blue sky research, so to speak. I mean, it's just driven by excellence. So it's bottom up. There's no thematic approach which is imposed. That's one. The second one is what we call the societal challenges one, where it's society, it's governments deciding about the agenda. And it's about ICT, it's about healthy living, it's about energy, etc. And there are things which are societal challenges. And then the third pillar, and I think it's very important, is driven by industry. And it's the industry, so it's more about applied research, of course. And I think that this approach, which combines these three pillars and this has this holistic view on how research should work and be articulated, I think that it's a major departure from the past, and I think that it will make it even more efficient.
And Bettina Gola, do you think they're bridging the gap, the skill gap between training and companies' needs and expectations?
Well, I think, as already said, that is very difficult to have an ultimate result, a perfect result on that. But programs such as Marie Curie contribute to this. And also to what Jordi just said, I think there are also very important initiatives in the next programming period, so in the program Horizon 2020. For example, there will be an SME instrument where a single SME can apply for funding for probably very large topics. So that is definitely a very good initiative. And also there will be a fast track to innovation pilot, so where exactly it's about innovation that is very close to market and where companies can apply for and they get the money and they can start working.
And I know it's a bit off topic, well, it's all related, but a lot of people that I know are unemployed. They're looking at me thinking that I know everything about the EU, which I would like to say I do, but I don't. And they want to be entrepreneurs and they want to know how can they start their own company with the help and the funding perhaps from the EU.
There are programs dealing with that, but of course that will not, I mean, the contribution that these programs have will not significantly change because of the amount of money which is devoted to that. I think that what's fundamental for that, but it might be contradicted by Bettina in particular, is to provide for the right entrepreneurial skills to researchers and to students. And I think that for researchers in particular, since you are here, we do insist a lot in Marie Curie that it's not just about research, that it's also about transversal skills. And it's about outreach, it's about communication and so on. Same thing for Erasmus Plus, now with the Knowledge Alliances that you were referring to, which are joint ventures between enterprises and universities. And it's fundamental that the two sides of the equation, on the one hand, the education sector and the research sector, which provide and supply skills, and the demand side, work hand in hand. And it's not just about education, meeting the skills required by the labor market. It's about having highly creative people going out of universities and shaping the labor market as well. I think it's the equation goes in both sides.
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
I agree that we need to educate young people that are creative and that know how they can solve problems that exist and how they can become active. So in the end, responsible citizens. And of course, entrepreneurship education then is a very important part, so that I learn from a very young age how I can, if I have a problem, how I can solve it. And then concerning your friends that are looking for funding.
Like look at in America, every second person is setting up a company. If they fail, it's no big deal. In Europe, people go into hibernation. They're so embarrassed. How can we change that mentality here?
There is a very interesting program, EU program called Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, where I need a business plan and an idea to create a business, and then I can find alone or with the help of the intermediary organizations that manage the program, to find an entrepreneur in another EU country. I can stay there for a period and try to find out how has he managed to start his own business, and then I go back home and I have the knowledge that I need to found my own business. So something that may be an idea for them.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bettina. Do you have some more questions for our panelists, Anna?
Well, maybe just to have it once again a bit more clearly, and I would like to address this question to Maria.
Sure.
Why do you think integrating students into businesses is important? Who benefits from it mostly?
If I understand well your question, you mean us as a students, how can we be good creating our own company? Is that what you want?
No, more inside the fellowship, like you also have this cooperation with businesses. Do you think it is important, or does it make any difference?
Well, for my case in particular, it is really important because, yeah, you can apply for European Union money, but if you can apply for it from Airbus, let's say, or Boeing, well, yeah, those are, there's where the aerospace money is. So, yeah.
It's a direct way to working life for you.
For sure. For most aerospace engineers, yeah, I mean, some can stay in the academia, but most of them and the biggest researchers are in NASA or our European, partnership from NASA and Airbus, Boeing, the big companies.
And your personal case, were you with any of them?
Well, for me, I would like to stay in the academia, but it's just my case. I guess it's not the scope of everyone. Normally, people prefer to go to big companies and earn much more money.
Great. More questions?
No, not really.
Okay. If we have nothing else to add, and we have no more questions from Twitter and Facebook, I'd like to thank all my guests for joining me here today to talking about investing in EU brains. Are we feeling positive or a bit negative about this?
I feel quite positive. I have to say that every time that I have the chance of meeting bright people like Maria and Marie Curie Fellows, it makes me understand what I'm doing in my office every day. So
And
it's a real motivation for me to meet people like you.
And Bettina?
Well, I think there's still a long way to go and there are many things to fix, but we're on the right track.
And finally, a word from you, some advice from people that are watching us, from students who'd like to get their hands on some funding.
Well, my very first advice is to go into the European Union pages and try to find for what you want, because that's something when I was younger, I didn't do, and that's a big mistake.
And did you have any information whatsoever in university about it from your teachers?
Well, I never heard about these programs from my teachers, no. On the contrary, Erasmus program is always there. Everyone talks about it. We have meetings every now and then at the university, but not about these ones.
So the lesson we've learned today is that the Commission has to communicate the Marie Curie programme much more. Okay, thank you all very much for coming, and thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon from the European Parliament here in Brussels. Goodbye.
Thanks.